We're going to move from a discussion of the future a bit to a discussion which will seem familiar from the past, how to deal with a resurgent Russia. We're delighted to have Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg. Please come up. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Nice to see you.
Please. So you served twice as Prime Minister of Norway, and in 2010 you resolved almost a 32-year dispute with Russia over the marine boundary. Can you tell a bit what it's like to negotiate with Russia?
So first of all, it was not me alone solving that. We negotiated for 40 years. And I think that's part of the key to the solution, is that we were able to stay for the long haul. I think that the key why Norway was able to reach an agreement with Russia on a borderline up in the Barents Sea and the Polar Sea, also covering big areas with also great potential for oil and gas, is that we were able to combine something which I think also is a message for NATO, and that is that we combined a strong defense, membership in the NATO alliance, with a pragmatic approach to Russia. So it was my experience is that there is no contradiction between defense and dialogue. Actually, strong defense, collective defense in the alliance provides the foundation for a small country as NATO to engage with Russia, and we have for decades developed a very pragmatic relationship with them on energy, on fishery, on borderlines, on many different issues.
Was Prime Minister Putin then your main interlocutor when you were Prime Minister?
It was partly Putin. The first time I met with him and discussed the borderlines, it was back in 2000. I was a very newly appointed Prime Minister, and he was quite new as President. And I remember that I tried to, on a napkin, to draw the border between Norway and Russia, and also then to in a way explain to him where we wanted the borderline to go. And everything went well until he took that napkin into his pocket and went and left the meeting. So that's a document in the Russian archives, and it will not pass the test of advanced map drawing. But at least he was very concrete. He was very on the substance, and we met several times in different capacities, or when he was Prime Minister and also President, and continued.
What is he like in person in these personal meetings?
He's very he's very focused on substance, and he goes through the different issues we discuss in a very detailed way, and of course I don't speak Russian and he doesn't speak English, as far as I know, at least. So we do it with translation.
Well, German could be your common language, right?
Sorry?
German could be your common language.
Yeah, but I don't speak German either. At least I understand some German. But my German would, if I started to speak German with him, I think we wouldn't have reached an agreement in 2010. Okay. So I used the translator. Yeah.
Is he a man, to paraphrase what Thatcher said about Gorbachev, is he a man that you can do business with?
My experience is that it is possible to reach agreements with Russia, and as Norwegian politician, both as Prime Minister but also as Minister for Industry, for Energy, I have the experience back to the 1990s, and also actually as the Deputy Minister for Environment before that it's possible to make agreement and to have a cooperative relationship with Russia. But as I said, a precondition for that is that we have the confidence, we have the strength, so Russia never challenged us on the principles, on our integrity they never challenged the sovereignty of Norway. And that's the problem now, is that the trust, which is a precondition for a cooperative relationship with Russia, has so much diminished because of Russia violating international law, using force in Ukraine. But in Norway, the experience was that if you have the strength, if you are part of a strong collective alliance, it's possible to do business with the Russians.
Do you think is this Russia is a very different Russia than the Russia of 2010?
It is a different Russia. At least it might be the same Russia, but behaving in a different way. And I think that I have never been naive when it comes to Russia. And that's also, as I said, the experience is that the way you can engage is that you have to be strong. It's complementary to be in dialogue and to have defense. It's different, at least Russia is behaving in a different way because they use force to change borders. But if we look on it in a bit broader context, it's not perhaps as surprising as we sometimes tend to believe, because this is the really disturbing thing is that the behavior of Russia in Ukraine is part of a pattern. They have for several years invested heavily in defense. They have modernized their forces. They have they're exercising much more. They have increased the presence, the military presence in the air, on land, at sea. And they are doing much more the SNAP exercises, which reduce predictability and transparency. And the most important thing, and the greatest reason for concern, is of course that Russia has used force, not only in Crimea, in eastern Ukraine, but they did so in Moldova back in the 1990s and in Georgia. So the problem is not only Ukraine. The problem is that this is part of a pattern which is really reason for concern.
But you said that you want a dialogue with Russia, and you have through the Normandy format. Some of the allies have tried to work with Russia. But where is the strength bit? That's the one that a lot of people. Where is the strength? You have probably only 5 or 6 out of the 20, and I'm probably maybe even exaggerating, of the 28 NATO allies who meet that that target of 2% spending on defense of GDP.
Right.
You're not willing to arm Ukraine, and America seems a bit disengaged from this conflict.
So where is the strength? NATO is the strongest alliance in the world, the most successful military alliance in history. So we are a strong alliance, but we have to keep NATO strong. And that's the reason why we are now implementing the biggest reinforcement of our collective defense since the end of the Cold War. We have already increased our military presence in the eastern part of the alliance with more planes in the air, 4 times as many planes doing air policing, more ships at sea, and more troops on the ground with more exercises, more presence in general. And then we are making our forces more ready, more prepared. We have something called a readiness action plan, and we are doubling the size of the NATO response force from 13,000 to 30,000. And the centerpiece of this new readiness or NATO response force is a high readiness force of where the lead elements are able to move within as little as 48 hours. Then we need to do more, and that's the reason why we made this defense investment pledge, stating that we will stop the cuts, gradually increase defense spending, and then reach 2% during the next decade.
There's a report this morning that Russia has built up air systems in eastern Ukraine, and there seems to be a new buildup of forces along that very porous Ukrainian-Russian border. What's going on?
It is a substantial Russian buildup along the border to Ukraine, but also inside eastern Ukraine. The Russians have, during the last months, increased the supplies. They have provided the separatists with well above 1,000 pieces of heavy equipment, advanced weapon systems, advanced air defenses, tanks, artillery, and in addition they have organized very advanced training, and they have also drones and other advanced equipment in eastern Ukraine. So both what we see in eastern Ukraine, but also what we see along the border to eastern Ukraine gives reason for great concern.
It doesn't bode well for the ceasefire to hold.
It's of course it's violating the Minsk agreements. It's undermining and violating the ceasefire, and it provides the separatists supported by the Russians with the capacity to launch a new big offensive with very little warning time. And that's the problem, because the equipment is there, they have trained, they have the supplies, they have the ammunition, they have the drones, the air defense systems in place. So we are not certain about the intentions, but we know about the capabilities, and we have seen the separatists supported by the Russians doing big offensives before, and of course they can do it again.
What is plan B if Minsk fails?
First of all, I think that we now all have to do whatever we can to support the full implementation of Minsk. And if I start to speculate on what we do if it fails, then I think it undermines the possibility of making Minsk a success. There are violations, there are challenges, the ceasefire is not fully respected, but the Minsk agreement, the ceasefire, is the best way forward and the best foundation for a peaceful, negotiated political solution to the crisis in Ukraine. And therefore we have to support it. I call on Russia to withdraw all its troops from eastern Ukraine. Both parties should withdraw all heavy weapons. And of course, perhaps the most important thing is that the monitors, the OSCE monitors, should be allowed full access, should be provided with the security guarantees they need to do a full monitoring of the ceasefire.
You worked very closely with the German government. Angela Merkel was your biggest boost supporter for you to come in to this job. And Germany is now, not only the main economic player, but also the main security player. It also has a very weak military. What are your expectations for Germany? What kind of role can Germany play in security if it does have this diplomatic clout, but has no strength, as you put it, on the military side?
So, first of all, Germany has a strong military. Germany is a strong and staunch ally. Germany has, as the whole alliance, acknowledged that we have to increase our capacity, and therefore Germany announced some weeks ago that they will now stop reducing the defense budget and start to increase. And I welcome that. Germany is going to invest more in defense, and that is important because Germany is a big economy with a big defense. Again, I believe that Germany has exactly the same approach as I and as the whole alliance, and that is that we have to combine strong defense with dialogue. That's not only the opinion of Angela Merkel and me. It's stated in the Wales Declaration. There we argue for a strong defense. We argue for the strongest reinforcement of our collective defense since the end of the Cold War, and we are implementing on that now. But at the same time, we have also stated in the Wales Declaration, the declaration we made at the summit last fall, that we still strive for a more cooperative and constructive relationship with Russia. So there is no contradiction between the track of defense, strength, and dialogue engagement. Russia is going to stay there. Russia is going to be our biggest neighbor. And we, in one way or another, we have to engage. We are ready to engage with Russia. We are ready to cooperate with Russia. But we will never compromise on the principles of our security, which is the respect of our borders and the sovereignty and integrity of all allies.
We're running low on time, but I want to ask you a question. If you give me a one-word answer, how many allies will be in NATO in 2030?
Yeah. No, I think that remains in 2030. That's quite many
Will
years.
NATO still be here? Maybe that's a better.
No, but I think that we have to take one decision at a time. And what NATO has done is that we have decided to make a decision on Montenegro by the end of the year, and we will do so. In general, I would say that the important thing is that whether NATO is going to enlarge or not is up to the 28 allies of NATO to decide. No one has the right to intervene into such a process.
I was thinking more sort of way down the road. For example, can you imagine Russia as a member of NATO in 20 years?
I think I've been politician for so many years that I've stopped speculating on hypothetical questions, and because the few times I've done that has been a disaster. So I've learned not to answer questions.
And what keeps you up at night?
I sleep. I'm very good at sleeping. Actually, I learned that when I did my military conscription back in 1979, because then I learned to sleep everywhere, anywhere, at all time. So, and I still have the ability to sleep when possible. So during night, I at least normally sleep. But of course, there are reasons for concern, but I address them when I'm awake.
Well, here's our scoop, that the head of NATO sleeps well at night. Thank you so much for coming to our event. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.